Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Reyes, Education USA Advisor in Mexico. Today, this session, the name of this session is Graduate Studies in the United States. And for this session, we have Regina from Brazil and Jason from Peru. They are going to be talking about this relevant topic for you guys. But just before they start, we want to wait just a few seconds for all the people to get in. And remember that in the Education USA Fair platform, we have a lot of resources, and we even have a photo booth, so you can take a picture of yourself, an animated GIF, or whatever you want to do in there, and you can upload your picture in the album that we have there. And yeah, I just want to leave the floor to Regina and Jason. Remember, you can put your questions on the Q&A tab, and they will be answered as soon as we can. And Jason and Regina will be answered them. So just be patient with your questions. Okay. So Regina, Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jorge. Regina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. So my name is Regina Poleza. I'm the EducationUSA advisor at Interamericano, that is in Curitiba, southern Brazil. And it's a great pleasure to be here, and we're going to take some questions at the end, right? So hopefully we're going to have this interactive session. And it's great to be working with Jason today. Jason, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jason Sherrill. So I am Education USA at the Fulbright Commission in Lima, Peru. So neighboring country with Brazil. And we hope you enjoy our presentation. Marina, if you want to go to the next slide, we can get started. So basically, we want to introduce you to the concept of Education USA and how we help students who want to study in the US. Last year, our last academic year, we had more than 1 million students, 1,075,000, as you can see on the screen. And of those, more than 80,000 were from Latin America. So we have really good representation. And there is a lot of interest on the part of the universities in the US to have more students from Latin America go to their campuses. Remember, we have more than 4,000 accredited higher education institutions in the US, and little less than half of those have graduate programs. And the focus today, just to remind all of you, is graduate programs. Okay, so that's very important for the Q&A session. Marina, if you want to move ahead, please. So Education USA, we are a U.S. Department of State network, and we have more than 430 international advising centers. Regina, how many do you have in Brazil, just to get a reference?
Yes, in Brazil, there are 42 centers.
Okay, and in Peru, we have, depending on how we classify the centers, we have between 10 and 12 centers here in Peru. So look for the centers in your countries at the website. There's a link on the screen. That is the best way to find the closest Education USA center to you and from whatever country you're joining us today. So our mission is to provide accurate, comprehensive, and current information regarding studies in the US. In this case, we're here to talk about graduate studies. And most of our offices, we do group sessions, we do fairs, we do many outreach events, but our goal is to have one-on-one sessions with you. And so I think the idea would be to look at this website, educationusa.state.gov, and find the email and actually send an email to your local Education USA center to see what kind of services they offer. I'm sure the idea is very similar in most countries in Latin America. And so that's, I think, the most important point to mention here is to have an Education USA advisor at your side to help you throughout this process. Regina, would you like to add anything to this?
Something that is interesting, so that you should know, is that all these centers worldwide There are EducationUSA centers that are at universities, binational centers, Fulbright commissions, and American corners. So they're spread in different settings with the same purpose of helping students study in the US. And when we talk about post-secondary education, it's so that you understand, we're talking about mainly two different levels. Jason is gonna cover that. And it's really important for you to know, first of all, we're talking about post-secondary education, meaning undergraduate, that would be your first step after high school, right? So you say undergraduate, and then graduate studies would be what in some countries would be called post-graduation, right? In Portuguese, it would be pós-graduação, right? And in Spanish, it would be
Postgrado.
posgrado.
So, exactly.
Yes.
So exactly, that's it. That's the main goal for today's talk. And Marina, on the next slide, we actually have this breakdown so that you can see when Regina mentioned undergraduate studies. Basically, that means you finish high school and you can do a 2+2 program or a direct 4-year program at a university. And then we move into what she explained as graduate studies. Now, there are different levels within the graduate or postgraduate education. So first on the list here, we have certificate programs. And I want to be very clear. In Spanish, we call those diplomados. In Portuguese, what would that be?
We would call something like especializações or pós-graduação, but it's shorter term programs. But they are not exactly equivalent. So when we're talking about certificate programs, at least in Brazil and in some countries, they're not exactly at the same level. It would be in the US, it would be a little bit lower. It would be like an extension program, but graduate level.
So certificate programs, the important thing to note is they are non-degree programs typically. And so in the scope of a graduate program, if we move to the next group, you have your master's, where you have your MA, which is Masters of Arts, you have Masters of Science, Masters in Engineering, you have Ed.M, which is like a Master's in Education, you have a Masters of Fine Arts. There are many, many designations. MBAs, many people know about MBAs, which basically is a Master's in Business Administration. And the one I want to point out, I think is important, is LLM, which is a Master's for laws, for graduated lawyers or lawyers who are already practicing law in their home countries can participate in an LLM, which is specifically a master's program for lawyers. Now, certificate programs tend to be a year long or so, or in some cases shorter. But I also want to mention that not all master's degrees are 2 years. In the case of LLM, they tend to be 1 year, but it is still considered a master's program. So don't get confused by length. If we look at the PhDs or the doctorate programs, they have many different designations. The most common is PhD, and Ed.D is like an education, doctorate in education. And then there are others. Here we have an example of an SJD, which would be someone who is already a lawyer, who has done an LLM, who now wants to go further into the theoretical part of law and get
research.
Research and doctorate in basically law. And so take a look at those designations and very, very careful when you're looking at your programs. There is a lot of crossover in these different designations, especially within the master's category. Now, Regina, do you want to do the professional schools?
Yes, and there's something else to add to the master's and doctorate programs. We get questions often about someone who wants to go to graduate school, but want to apply directly from undergraduate to a doctoral program, for example. Is it possible to do it? Yes, it is, depending on the field, depending on the university. But you have to keep in mind and bear in mind that you are definitely going to have to take the credits that you would take during the master's plus the ones you're going to take for the doctoral program. So it all depends on the university, your future goals, and so. And it's always good to take a look at the main letter. If you have an M, you know it's a master's usually, so an MBA, an MA, that is of arts, science, and so. And the D stands for the doctoral program. So EDD, PhD, SED, that helps a little bit when you're searching. The professional school basically is, in many countries, especially in Latin American countries, we go to the we attend undergraduate programs in fields like medical school, so medicine, dental school, veterinary medicine, law. So many countries have these programs as their undergraduate degrees. But in the US, if you're leaving high school and you want to go to medical school, it doesn't work the same way. You're not going to apply for medical school right in undergraduate. You have to go through an undergraduate first, usually focused with classes that will be tested later on in your admission process for these schools. But law, medicine, dentistry, psychology, and some other fields, they are already a graduate program, you know, in nature. So you're not going to apply for these degrees right after high school. That's why we tend to suggest that you apply for those, you take these programs in your home country, and then try to validate or have the equivalency. And there are many ways to do that when you go to the US, either through a residency program or through an LLM or a bar exam in the US, and many other ways to do it, right? So we're going to move on to the next slide. Would you like to add anything?
No. So Regina is going to talk to you about what is our brand at Education USA, your 5 steps to US study. So
yeah, and it's actually a methodology, right? Because when we think about studying in the US in general, we're talking about a huge dream, a huge step, something that you really need to plan and think ahead. And there's so many things to do. But it's definitely possible, achievable, right? But you have to know what to do, how to do. And some questions we usually ask is, when should I plan and do things? Where should I look for information or for programs? Who should I look for? You know the answer. Education USA advisors would be the answer on who to look for. But you have to actually plan ahead. And the 5 steps are a great way for you to start planning in a very clear, organized, and usually successful way, right? So when we think about something, it can be anything in life. You have to know what you want, you know what you're looking for, So step 1 would be research your options. What am I looking for? Am I looking for graduate or undergraduate? Now you know the difference, so you know what you're looking for. Where should I look for any program? There are websites that are safe, that many sites that have or hold accredited institutions listed. And accreditation is super important because you want to go to a school that is actually there, that is valid, that has an actual degree for you in the US, right? So when you research your options, you can go to www.educationusa.state.gov. Then you will see there is this tab that you will see the 5 steps, and you can explore one by one. And step 1, when you check and click on graduate studies, graduate school, you're going to narrow your options, search for programs. So petersons.com is a good place to go. There are many people who search for programs in like MBAs. You have a website for that. So there are many websites you can use. Then once I know what I want, I know what I'm looking for, and I listed some of the options, how can I actually know which one is a good fit for me? Usually the program that you want, that you're looking for, goes really closely together as criteria for selection when you're talking about funding. Because if I'm looking for a scholarship, if I don't have enough funds to cover my education, either the program, how much does it cost? How much does it cost to live in the US? Actually, housing, food, what do I have to bring? So there are so many things. So you have to know how much you have, or how much you would like to get. There are two different things, right? And this would be step 2. So finance your studying, learning where to look for scholarships, how to look for scholarships, how much it's going to cost, how much you have. And we don't usually hide things because this is an honest, blunt, clear process, right? So you have to know how much you have and you're going to have to show it. So you can think about a scholarship, not actually needing one. You can go for a merit one, or you can go for a merit need-based scholarship. So it all depends on the program you're looking for. Then once you know what you want, the options you listed, and then you narrow it down to options that seem more realistic, and obviously your EducationUSA advisor can help you and will help you with this. Then we go to step 3, that is completing your application. That's the fun, exciting part of the process, because then you're actually doing things. It's showing who you are. And you're not just a student. You're not just a professional. You're not just something. You're a whole package of information and experiences. And this is what you're going to show when you get to step 3. So on our next slide, you're going to see the basics. And it's going to be quick, but hopefully you're going to get a lot of information on seeing where you are, what you're doing. How can I do this? It seems to be so much, but it's not, as long as you plan and you do things one by one. So planning is the word, right, of the whole process, and really dreaming and not giving up. So what are the application requirements for master's or PhD programs? So testing, you have to show your knowledge, you have to show your English. Because how can you actually work on your academic skills if you're not able to communicate with the language of instruction, right? So that's why you can take the TOEFL, the IELTS, the Duolingo, or some other tests, depending on the university. Then GRE and GMAT are more specific, either on verbal skills, quantitative, or specific knowledge on a certain area. Then you're going to talk about yourself. What are my experiences, my family? Where did I come from? What am I doing? What are my plans? My research and academic experiences. This is going to be written on your personal statement. And then you have to show who you were as a student. As I'm telling you, I'm showing you. You showed tests, you showed English, you showed what your dreams and ambitions and everything, your history, personal history is. Now it's time to show yourself as a student. So the transcripts and your diploma and your translations that come together with it have to be sent to the university to show who you were, your history, your whole history as a student. Some people have bad grades here, bad grades there, excellent grades here and there, but that's not, you're not just the grades, you're the whole thing. And then as a professional, how do I show who I am as a professional? How do I express and prove that I have some skills that other people might not have as professionals? Then you have your CV, your curriculum vitae, or what we call resume, that will list your experiences, where you studied, what you did, where you work, your additional skills, research, teaching experience, depending on where you are and what you're doing. And finally, somebody has to show, to say who you are from outside, right? From the outside. So how do people see me? Because I love myself, but do others, do other people who work with me as my supervisor, my professor, what do they have to say about my skills, my talents, and my challenge, actually, and my, what can I improve? There are so many questions, and somebody who has supervised you, a professor or a supervisor at work, would be a great source of information in this way. So you can see that the graduate process is covers many aspects of who you are. And once you have it all, you're going to fill some forms, right? Send some documents to the universities that you're going to choose, and then we'll move on to the next slide. That is the next step. Okay, so I sent my application. Hopefully I'm going to be accepted. I'm going to be admitted to many universities. Usually for graduate schools, you apply for 5, 7. That would be a good number, depending on the program more, depending on the program less. And then, of course, we want to be admitted by all, but as long as you're admitted by one and you know that you want to go there. Then once you're admitted, you're going to reply that you accept the offer. And then, only then, you're going to think about the visa. And visas are for the student. Usually the visa, the type student visa is called F or J, depending on.
I think, did we lose Regina? Actually, that leads us into one of the questions. So one of the questions is, I'm having difficulties contacting prospective professor advisors. So do you have any recommendations? That was one thing I wanted to mention during her section of this research your options, is I use those websites that Regina mentioned to actually find the name of the program directors. Then I Google them and I find their CVs. I look at their history to make sure that their research or their programs are what I'm looking for. And then I actually write an email directly to them. And if they are not the person that is in charge of the program that I want to apply for, I simply write to them and ask them for a contact. Martina, how are we doing on time?
I'm back. For some reason, I was down for a minute.
Fine.
We still have
Okay.
5 minutes, right? 5?
Okay.
Can you hear me, Jason?
Yes. Now I can.
Yeah. For
Good.
some reason, I was cut down, but I'm back. So
Mhm.
you were talking about contacts, and so just to finish this step part, because then we'll have our 4 or 5 minutes questions. Once you're admitted to the program, then you will apply for your student visa. Once you get your visa, it's time for your departure to know what to take and to know about vaccination and so many other things, and items to bring and housing and so many other details, right? So once you understand the 5 steps, research, funding, complete your application, visas, and depart, you have it all covered. So it's possible, as you can see, it's possible. It's totally achievable. Once you plan and you get a good idea of what you're doing, you know you're going to look for an EducationUSA advisor for your support, and all your questions might be answered. Hopefully, they're all going to be answered, right? And as I'm talking about all questions being answered, we're going to leave these 4 minutes for questions that we might not have covered. And if we have not covered, we are going to have the booth, the EducationUSA booth, and you can ask additional questions and talk to the universities and learn more, right? That's it.
So Jason fished out one of the questions that I was going to suggest about contacting professors. So thank you for that, Jason. Another question that we have here, it's very basic, but it is something that a lot of people ask. So if we graduate from university in our own countries, it counts study as a master at the United States universities?
So can you say that again?
We missed the question. Yeah.
We missed the question because you're cutting off. Let me try to read it. So if you graduated, yes.
If we have a degree from a university in our own country, it counts to study a master or a PhD?
Yes, actually that most of the time the answer to that question is yes. And actually Regina mentioned a good point earlier. In some cases, a bachelor's degree from your home country can lead you directly to a doctorate program, and definitely can lead you to a master's program. You simply have to make sure that you are qualified where you want to apply, and that your bachelor's degree includes certain core courses that might be required by a master's or a PhD program.
And Marina, I'd like to add, because I saw a few questions that will cover this too, so we'll say it, okay? There are a few people asking about working in the US and studying in the US, validating degrees. So completing and adding to what Jason just said, what I would say is, first of all, I would strongly recommend that you first think about studying in the US, because you don't know what comes later. So you don't know exactly how your path is going to be like, how your school is going to be, your adjustment, cultural adjustment, and so many other things. So if you think about validating degree and other things in the US, what I would strongly recommend if you're thinking about graduate school, focus on your education first. Make sure you're going to the right track, you're getting the degree you want, you're performing well, because if opportunities may come, that will be for the future. So our focus is studying, but I would say that especially, so if you're asking about visas and so, I think it's better if you focus on education first, because then you will cover most of your questions.
And I think Marina just put out a second part of that question. Does the visa allow me to maintain myself? And the answer is yes. There's a program called OPT, which is available to international students at almost all level of study. So the answer is yes, you stay in the US after you graduate on the OPT program, but that is through your student visa. That is not a permanent.
And it's connected to your sponsor, that is your university. It usually lasts for a year because it's your optional practical training. But after you're done, it's very likely you're going to have to go back to your country, or you have to apply for another academic program. And then we will go to the details as you will have your specific needs and so. And your EducationUSA advisors will always be able to help you with planning other opportunities too. I think we have 30 seconds for last question, or maybe to say goodbye.
I think we're over
Yes.
30 seconds. So
Yeah.
Over
thank
30
you, Marina.
seconds.
Thank you, Jorge. Regina, it's been a pleasure to present with you. I would suggest for the unanswered questions to contact your EducationUSA advisor.
Thank you very much, and good luck
Thank
on
you,
your pursuit on
everyone.
education.
And
Thank
enjoy the
you.
fair. Enjoy
Yes.
contacting the universities. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.